In this section, we're going to introduce the concept of financial planning and what is the need for financial planning as such when we are doing wealth management for someone, right? So the question that arises is what is the broad need for financial planning? What is financial planning, and how do we go about extending this in terms of certain investment decisions for individuals who are going to use these as concepts, right? Now, let's understand what are the problems that someone faces. The first problem we face in terms of our money management is that inflation is a real danger. Inflation is a term used to define the depletion of purchasing power of money, and that typically happens because of rising prices of goods and services, right? A movie ticket used to cost about 20 bucks 10 years back. It costs 150 to 200 now. Petrol costs used to be about 20 rupees a liter about 10 years ago, 20 to 30. It costs around 65 to 70 per liter now. House prices and rents have gone up 5 to 10 times in the last 10 to 15 years, right? So that's all inflation. And if your purchasing power is not going to keep pace with this move in real prices on ground, then there is going to be a problem. So obviously, there needs to be some sort of a planning around it. Correct? That's an important learning that we have had that we need around this. The second point is in terms of overall behaviors that people witness in terms of their tolerance on a variety of parameters. Risk tolerance, if this is the timeline around age, as the age of the person increases, the risk tolerance capacity decreases. There is a decrease in risk tolerance purely because if you're young and you lose money in stock markets, you can earn it back once again. But if you're not young, you're old, then essentially this could result in a severe beating. So, for example, a 25-year-old guy can afford to invest in equity markets. Even if stock markets fall by 20% tomorrow, they have a chance to earn this money back. An 80-year-old guy, on the other hand, cannot take this risk because if the money goes, then you don't have time on the side while making financial decisions as you become older. So logically, risk tolerance will keep decreasing or risk taking ability will keep decreasing as people grow older. Why is that important? Tomorrow you become a wealth manager. There is a client who comes to you who's a 75-year-old gentleman. You cannot go and advise them the same instruments for investment that you would for a 30-year-old person, right? So 75 and 30 would have completely different risk profiles, right? And so your answers or solutions need to change based on that, correct? That's the first part. Then we look at income. Now, typically for most people, income increases as life goes on and increases till retirement, whatever the retirement age is. We've just put it around 65 or something here. Let's say it reaches that age. After that, it just becomes zero at one point. The moment you stop working, there is no income. So income would increase till the retirement age and then it drops to zero. That puts an interesting parameter that for the rest of your life, you have to rely on what you have had as savings all this while. So if you don't save when you're earning, this is going to be a problematic scenario. Correct? That again puts into bracket that people have to do what is called as retirement planning, right? Then the next bit that comes in is insurance needs. What is insurance? Insurance is nothing but risk protection. And when we say risk protection, we are looking at only, remember, only financial risk in this case. We are not talking about emotional risk, correct? And when we talk about insurance needs, it is, while we will discuss insurance in more detail in subsequent sections, what is important is we understand that insurance is an important part of overall wealth management or financial planning of people, purely because if something was to happen to the main breadwinner of the family, how does the family survive post that, right? When someone is young, they typically have no dependents. When you have no dependents, your financial risk is close to nil. if something were to happen to this person, financially it's not going to create a problem for people who are dependent, because there usually aren't too many people dependent on them. As life goes on, people have a family. You first get married, then there are kids. That's the logical sequence. Parents get retired around this time. And so effectively, somewhere in this region, your financial risk increases. If something was to happen to people in this age bracket, once they have a family, the risks are significantly higher. So your insurance needs increase till the time, let's say you reach 45, 50 years of age. Post which, once again, what happens is most of your expenses are taken care of and it starts decreasing. So most of your expenses in terms of children's education is taken care of. By the time people reach 50, 55, their children have probably finished their graduation and have started moving towards a job. So they become financially independent. So number of dependents again moves towards less, right? So no dependents usually as you go ahead in life. So as you don't have too many dependents in life, plus you would have saved something in your income all this while. So some part of the financial risk would have gotten taken care by the savings people would have accumulated over this period. Insurance needs are typically highest when kids of an individual are close to higher education. Subsequently, they start reducing. Typically, generally speaking, right? It could be different for different people, but generally speaking, that's the case. Then we look at expenses. That's a straightforward scenario. If you have inflation, which is a reality in most geographies, then expenses will keep increasing till a person lives, right? There is no going around expenses in that context. Healthcare needs also, with the increase in life expectancy, people are living longer. Because people are living longer, they would look at healthcare solutions, and hence healthcare needs also keep increasing as life progresses, right? Health weakens, solutions are available, so people end up kind of spending that as well, and that also keeps adding up. All these put together create what is called as a goal-based financial planning. Now you know what your requirements are as an individual. You go to a financial advisor or a wealth manager, and the job of the financial advisor is to look at what kind of goals a particular individual has in life, whether it is retirement goal or whether it is a vacation goal or whether it is around kids education, whether it is around marriage of kids, whether it is around own higher education, settling abroad. All kinds of goals essentially would come on the table. The person would probably put a financial number on those goals, and then there would be a back calculation in terms of trying to figure out what the actual value of that goal would be, right? Questions to ask. What questions do we ask, right? Let's take an example. Let's assume that Mr. X is 35 years old and earns 2 lakh rupees a month. He's able to save about 50,000 a month after all the routine expenses, paying for the loans for the house, car, and other needs. Investments include those done for tax savings, bank deposits, bonds, and some mutual funds. We'll look at individual classes of mutual funds, etc. later. He also pays the premiums for life insurance for himself and his wife. He's the sole earning member of his family and believes he takes care of his finances adequately to take care of his current and future needs. How would financial planning help him? Right? Now, while we actually get to the questions of financial planning over a period of time, there is a basic set of questions we need to answer as we go ahead, right? What is that basic set? The first question is, as a sole earning member, has he made provisions if his current income is interrupted for any reason? He loses a job, there is a health issue, he wants to leave his job to start something of his own. What happens if the current income stops? Does this person have adequate insurance cover? In case there is an untimely demise, what happens? What are the specific future expenses? Now, this guy might say that future expenses are taken care of, but what are these expenses? Are you going to buy a house? Are you going to buy a car? Are you going to spend it on education? Where is it? And how exactly will you fund them? Does he even know what is the value of these expenses in future? I mean, I can know what my college education expense is today, but what will college expense education, on education be 5 years, 10 years down the line, how do you really know that? If he has to build a corpus large enough to fund expenses, large expenses in the future, what is the corpus size he should build? Right? When we say corpus, that's the amount of investment someone has. Given the current income and expenses, is he saving enough? Right? He's saving 50,000 a month, but is that enough to create the corpus we said in the fourth point? How should the saving be deployed? What kind of investments are suitable for this person? Right? And to build the required corpus, remember your required corpus could be something like, I want 50 lakhs at the end of 5 years or 10 years, right? To reach 50 lakhs, a certain return would be required. How do you get that return? That return is going to come from your choice of investments, right? Depending on the risk you're willing to take, that will come in. And how much risk are you willing to take? That's a very important question with the investment, right? And how would those risks get managed? Is there a timely intervention? Are you going to monitor it from time to time? How are those risks going to get managed? This is a generic set of questions you have to ask. Is the present income enough? What happens if the present income gets interrupted? What happens if something was to happen to this person who's the breadwinner, sole breadwinner of the family? What expenses are required in the future? How much savings are required? Are those savings adequate, what you're doing today? And what kind of investments are suitable? What kind of risk profile does the person have? Those are the broad 6, 7 questions that someone has to answer before you arrive at the discussion on what kind of instruments are best for this particular person, right? That's the question someone has to ask in terms of financial planning. So let's go ahead and understand the broad process of financial planning. There's client engagement, where you basically ask questions, these questions that we saw on the previous page. These questions then align themselves into identification of specific financial goals, right? You do risk profiling, which is how old is the person, what is the risk tolerance, what happens if investments go down by 20%, does the client panic at that point? Based on the risk and specific goals, you create a portfolio that's called the model portfolio. Once you have created that, there is a discussion on the investments after that. And finally, once the investments are done, there is a periodic reviewing of the portfolio that is going to happen, right? This periodic reviewing of the portfolio is important. And if there are any changes made, you again go back to the client, engage with the client, understand if new goals have come up or old goals have been materialized, and then continue the process. This is a continuous process, right? It just goes on and on and on till the time the client stays with you. And that's why wealth management is a longer term engagement for any set of clientele who come in, right? That's the process of financial planning. The key points to consider are: asset allocation has to be linked to financial goals. And asset allocation, when we say asset allocation, how much equity, how much debt, how much bonds, how much gold, that has to be linked to financial goals. And that also has to be linked to life stages: childhood stage, young investor, mid 30s, mature, and retired couple or a retired person, right? Your risk profile changes in all these, right? In all these, risk profile changes. So the points to consider have to be carefully looked at in the context of these stages. Now, calculation of corpus needed, and this will bring us back to one of the points we have discussed earlier. Vinod has a monthly expense of 60,000. He's 30 years of age and expects to retire at the age of 60. He also expects his income to grow at 10%, expense to grow at 6%. What is the expense at retirement, annual expense in terms of retirement? So today the expense is 7,20,000. 30 years down the line, expenses growing at 6% inflation is going to give me a 41 lakh kind of a number. Assuming that inflation stays at 6%, Vinod's annual expense will be close to 41 lakhs at the end of this period, right? Now, you need him to generate 41 lakhs in the 61st year, right? And 41 lakhs growing by 6% every year After that, in the 62nd, 63rd, 64th, and so on and so forth kind of numbers. And that is where we come back to our earlier discussed concept of annuities, right? Remember, every year you're going to make about 41 lakhs kind of a number coming out. You can have a fixed annuity that comes out. It is one of the most important concepts that come in return calculation and retirement planning. People can plan for their retirements and their goals, financial goals, and here the annuity concept becomes important. For any financial goal, a goal is going to come in the future. What is the amount of money needed to be saved now will become a part of what annuity calculations give you. Where does annuity come from? And those calculations then become an important yardstick on how do you go about looking at these data points, right? What is the future value of an annuity? That's basically how much you invest today. 1,000 invested at 5 years for 4 years is 1 plus r 4. Then this multiplied by 1 plus r to the power 3, 1 plus r to the power 2, 1 plus r to the power 1. And this is obviously being invested now. Add all these. That's your value of the future value of annuity. We are not going to use any calculation formula. In the past, we have seen the formula, but we are going to use Excel. And Excel has a function FV, which is going to give us future value. We've used this as well elsewhere in the past, right? So that's the future value of the annuity that we are looking at. We can also calculate the present value of the annuity. So if someone wants 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000 for 5 years, present value is going to come by discounting this, which is going to be 1 plus r square, 1 plus r cube, right? 1000 by 1 plus r cube, 1000 by 1 plus r to the power 4, and 1 plus r to the power 5. And you add all these up. The summation of these is going to give you what is going to be the present value. Once again, we're going to use the function PV in Excel to solve this, right? Example of an annuity. Suppose you have taken a car loan and you need to pay 1 lakh every year end for the next 5 years. What is the present value of all the payments that you're going to make? You have to calculate PV. Your PMT is 1 lakh in that formula. Your number of periods or NPER is 5. Your rate is going to be 10%. FV is going to be 0. You can calculate it, put these numbers in the PV formula, and you will get the value, right? Effectively, that's what you're trying to calculate using the function of annuity calculations, right? That's an important yardstick that we need to understand as we are looking at annuity calculation. Let us actually solve this one and solve a couple more problems using annuities on the Excel file. So let's solve the first one first, which is we are saying that I'll come to this example that's mentioned on the screen in a moment, but let's solve the earlier example we just saw. We said PMT is 1 lakh. We said NPER is 5 years. We said rate is 10%, and we have to calculate the present value. How much money do I need in my bank account today that keeps growing at 10%? So this is rate, comma, NPER, comma, PMT. Face value is, future value is 0, and type end of the period. So we put it as 0. We need 379, and we can change the currency to appear as the Indian currency, and we need 379078 rupees in the bank account today. The negative sign basically just shows inflows and outflows. So if I was to change this to a negative number, that would become positive, right? That's the calculation for what we just saw. Now let's complicate things a little bit and look at this example. If I want an annuity of rupees 10 lakh for 20 years, 15 years from now, how much should I save each year, assuming a 10% rate of return? Now that changes things. It becomes a little bit complicated. Why does it become complicated? Is because we are effectively saying that this is now, you have to first save for 15 years and then for another 20 years, which is 35 years from now. That's the problem, right? You need an annuity of 10 lakhs all these years, right? So that's the retirement pension that you are saying all these years between years 15 and 35. Assume these are all at the end of the year that you're looking at, right? So these are all future values. You first want to find out what is the amount you need in your bank account at the end of the 15th year, correct? So you have to find the present value of all these set of cash flows. Once you have found this amount that you need at the end of 15 years in your cash in your bank account, you then start finding the PMT, the annuity value that you need to invest every year so that you reach this present value, right? So there are two parts to this question. Let's solve it one by one. The first part is how much corpus do we need, right? Corpus do we need at the end of 15 years. How do we solve that? We have the PMT available with us, and that's 10 lakhs. I'm just going to use it in lakhs. Rate is available with us. We have the NPER available with us, which is 20 years, and payment is happening at the end of the year. So I can find the present value of this corpus. That's given by PV. Rate is 10%, comma 20 years, comma 10 lakhs. Everything else is zero. I can close this. We need 85 lakhs in our bank account. If we have 85 lakhs in our bank account, we should be able to arrive at effectively what is going to be the number. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go put this 10 as minus 10 so that this number becomes positive. Now, how much do we invest every year for the next 15 years? How much we invest each year for the next 15 years to reach 85 lakhs, right? We are also going to get 18 the same 10% return for the next 15 years. That's what we are assuming. So how much do we invest? That is going to come from the formula of PMT, right? In this case, we're going to put in PMT, and let's open the brackets. The rate is fixed, that's 10%. The number of periods is now 15 years. The present value is zero. We don't have any money at this point of time. The future value is 85 lakhs, correct? And again, it's happening at the end of the year. I can close it here. So I need to save 2.68 lakh rupees every year. I need to save 2.68 lakh rupees every year to be able to reach this value at the end of 15 years. And then this value can keep giving me 10 lakh rupees at the end of every year for the next 20 years, assuming a 10% rate of return, right? That's also, so there are two things that become evident here. One part is essentially how much you need to save for the next 15 years. The second part is the power of compounding. The compounding power basically allows you to take this 2.68 and essentially once you have invested it for 15 years, you reach 85 lakhs. Then on every year, while you take out 10 lakhs from this, you still have 75 lakh that grows at 10%. So 75 lakh grows at 10 gives you 7.5 more. So in the second year, you have 82 lakhs or something. Then you take out 10, you still have 72 growing at 7.2 by 7.2 the next year, right? So compounding keeps giving you more and more money as well. That is the power of using annuities, and that's one of the examples of how do you go about using the annuity calculation, right? That's the annuity example. That's what brings us to an end to this particular section. Couple of quick questions. Explain the need for financial planning and assume that an investment is going to pay rupees 50,000 for the first 3 years, followed by 60,000 for the fourth year. All payments are at the year end. If the expected return is 10%, how much should you be willing to pay for this investment? Basically, you have to find the present value of this set of cash flows, assuming a 10% rate of return, right? Thank you.